Today we're out in our cider orchard talking about an apple called Dabinett, or Dabinett, sorry, I always do that. It looks French, but it's actually an English cider apple. It's from the region of Somerset, which is probably the biggest hard cider producing region in England. So this apple is not for eating, it's not for baking, it's not for sweet cider, it is strictly for hard cider. It was discovered in the early 1900s, just in a hedgerow. A lot of awesome apples have been discovered this way. They think its parent might be one called Chisel Black, but no way to know 100%. Kind of why we selected to grow it out here is for a cider apple, it is more resistant to a lot of diseases. Hard cider apples tend to be susceptible to all manner of diseases, generally due to the fact that they are from a far different growing region with different weathers. So more prone to some of the diseases we've seen in the Midwest. But this particular has good resistance to apple scab, which is one of the main fungus that attack apples in our region. So another good thing about this particular apple is it bears annually. Cider apples have a tendency to bear biannually, which means one year they'll have a lot of apples and then the next year nothing. For cider apple, Dabinett is kind of evens out. So that means you can get a crop every year, which is always great. They're a smaller apple, kind of red as you can see with green on the background. A little bit dry, not too juicy, a lot of sugar and some tannins on there. Like I said, you don't want to eat it. On the back end, it gets kind of sour. You kind of just want to spit it out. So just strictly a hard cider apple, but for us, it grows a lot easier than a lot of the more finicky hard cider apples that are out there. And to talk more about how the cider comes across when you drink it, we have our head cider maker, Greg Ruth.
As Kyle said, we have here Dabinett, or as I like to say, Dabinett. That's probably what got Kyle started calling it Dabinett, whatever you just called it. But anyways, bittersweet apple out of the UK. As I mentioned before in videos, bittersweet for us means high sugar and, as Kyle was mentioning before, tannin. And what that does for us on the alcohol end is bring a lot of moodier, darker characteristics to the party. This is not as aggressive of a tannin as our apples we've talked about before, like Yarlington Mill. Gives a little more mellower vibe to it. But yeah, it's gonna be, you said this was roughly 15 bricks, you were saying?
Yeah, I'm sure that was a week ago, so I'm sure it's a lot higher now.
So, you know, this is gonna ferment out to the high 8s. And for us, because it is lacking the acidity that other apples have that we grow, it's mainly a blending fruit. We're gonna wanna blend this in with a different apple like Gold Rush or something else to really make it a more well-rounded drink for you.
And I don't know, it might even get higher than 15, 16 bricks, because one thing we've noticed is, so in England where they grow this apple, they pick it in like mid-November. Here, most mid-Novembers, we've already had too hard of a frost. And in some hot years, they start going soft and rotten on the tree before we can get them off. So this is the first year we've had a nice, cool fall where we can really like try to hang these close to November. So I'm really interested to see how that changes the cider, and yeah, we'll see.
Cheers, buddy. Is that watercore?
That's watercore.
Do you guys want to see what watercore is?
As you can see here, this apple has watercore, and we've had this on a lot of cider fruit. It's actually a buildup. If it's not water, I forget exactly what the liquid is. It's like a kind of a sugary liquid. It's not exactly water. And this is brought on by high temps in a lot of apples, and it can be attributed to calcium deficiency. Now, calcium's a little weird because you can have plenty of calcium in the soil, but it moves with the water. So if you have uneven watering, uneven rains, the calcium won't get to the place where it needs to go when it needs to go. And they don't even know for sure that it's 100% a calcium thing. It could also, there's also been links to different boron levels, and like I said, high temperatures. So there's just certain apples that are more prone to this. And what this means is, as soon as it comes off the tree, it doesn't have a long life. This watercore will make it so this apple doesn't store well at all. And you don't usually store cider apples for long anyway, but in dessert apples that you're trying to store, you do not want watercore.
Honestly, with how high of sugar it is right now, it's not that offensive of a bite. But as it lingers, your palate starts getting to be dried out. Yeah, you just get these almost caramely spicier notes that sort of come over your palate. And when that ferments out, that's just a nice blender there for you. Yeah, and so there we have it. Dabinett for us on the cider end of the spectrum honestly gives us a little bit of variety in what we put out. We use so much culinary fruit in our day-to-day ferments. This gives a little bit of a variety, a change of flavor for us. But also ties us back, to the roots of cider making and our families over in the UK and Europe, and how they used to produce cider or continue to produce cider. Really trailed off there, but